Okay, so this is the Anbernic RG557. It is my first experience of testing out an Android handheld, and I am starting off with something pretty epic here. The first time you feel it, the ergonomics, they're just really nice. I mean, it's a kind of like a flat unit. It's very slim right the way through, but you've got these bulges here and here, which just kind of fit your hands in place. You've got the analog trigger here, like this, and the bumpers above it. The analog sticks on either side are actually kind of tiny, which looked a little odd at first, but I think that's just because it's compared to what I'm used to. It does actually come with some caps that go over the top to make them feel kind of normal size, but I didn't like them. They felt really cheap and almost like slippery. And as soon as I took them off, I realized that these feel great. I find a lot of the time my thumb kind of loses where it's up to on a larger stick. With these, I keep loads of control and they're super responsive, so they haven't been an issue at all. We've got some nice kind of solid face buttons with the colours built in for A, B, X, Y. D-pad is really good. Below the D-pad you've got a sort of special Anbernic button and a home return type button. Over on this side you've got your standard select and start. Triggers at top as well as your volume up and down and your power. On the bottom you've got your headphone socket. You've got a little Nintendo Switch style flip open trapdoor for putting your SD card in, and you've got USB-C. The USB-C, as well as charging and as well as having external controllers and things like that, will also work as a video out. So if you have a USB-C to HDMI, I think that will allow you to connect to an external TV. The screen, which we'll get onto in a little bit, is huge, and also a touch screen, because obviously this is an Android device. Basically, think of it this way, it's like a phone with a controller slapped onto it, if you're thinking about it in very crude terms. However, these are capable of emulating a lot, and certainly a lot more than the Linux devices I am used to. So this has been around for a little while now, and I am only just getting around to doing the video on it because I've been spending a lot of time kind of getting used to it. This is my first experience of an Android handheld, aside from my phone, obviously. So it's been quite different. It's been a bit of a learning experience, and I was finding that although I was getting ready to make a video, the more time I spent with it, the more tweaks I made, the better it got. And I wanted to give a fair opinion on this because anyone thinking of investing in one of these is thinking of investing quite a lot of money. So we'll get onto that in a little bit. So I have taken a while putting the video together. There are a lot of videos out there already, but most people's videos I've seen were more kind of comparing it to other Android devices. And what I want this video to kind of echo is my experience of, if you are used to your standard kind of budget handheld emulators, what something like this might offer and might convince you to invest in compared to the handhelds that you've played on already. So that's kind of the gist of what I want to be talking about in this video. I'm going to just switch on, so just long press on the power button until it starts to wake up, and then while it is coming to life with this gorgeous OLED screen. In fact, I wrote down some of the tech specs because I tend not to be about the tech specs. Even if you've got a really powerful machine, which this is, and you've got really high quality components and all of the processors and everything else, a lot of the time it's about how it's used. It can be amazing, but it's not just about the specs. However, they do give you an indication of what it can do. The first thing you hear when it loads up, and I'll just put this near my mic, is there is an internal fan that whirs away. That has since calmed down after the initial boot up. It is a hot day here today as well, so that will affect it. I do have it to run on a kind of a performance setting that does kick in the fan more often than not. To be honest, when you're playing and you can hear the games, not an issue at all. So the screen is a 5.48 inch AMOLED display. It's phenomenal. Now I'm noticing a little bit of flickering. It might be to do with the refresh rate of the screen and the refresh rate of my camera, so if the video is a bit flickery, I apologize. I did have some issues with it when I first started to use it in terms of getting headaches and things like that. I thought that might be to do with the refresh rate, but it was actually to do with the LEDs on the back of the joysticks. You can see there I've got it set to a subtle yellow. Thankfully, there are controls to alter these, because when they were on full brightness, I found that my focus was struggling between the screen and these lights, and I ended up getting headaches. So there are settings where you can go in, because the LEDs look awesome, but yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not going to just sit and look at LEDs. It's to make the thing look cool, but the sort of subtle yellow is quite nice, and it means now that the display, see, it's just gone slightly dim there, and bring it back to life. The display itself is the main thing you're going to be looking at. So yeah, I just changed the settings to dim those slightly, and I've not had any headaches since. Okay, so in terms of the spec of this console, the screen is a 5.48-inch AMOLED display with 1920 by 1080 resolution. It has a MediaTek Dimensity 8300 octa-core processor. It's got a Mali G615 MC6 GPU, 12 gigabytes of RAM and 250 gigabytes of storage, Android 14, Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.3. It's got a 5,500 milliamp hour battery, which will take a 27 watt fast charge. That is a game changer for me. Loads of these handhelds always just charge from a USB-A to USB-C and take quite a while. This will actually fast charge just like my phone does. It has capacitive joysticks. It has Hall sensor triggers on here. And also I mentioned before the SD card slot, you can expand your storage, which is already generous at 256 gigabytes. You can expand that up to 2 terabytes of storage in the SD card slot. There is a lot of capability. It's a very powerful machine on paper. When I first started to try it out, I was a little underwhelmed until I got to grips with settings and things like that, and I have found it can play quite a bit. For example, I've been playing Mario Kart Wii on 4 times resolution, and it runs absolutely beautifully on here. It's really, really good. So it's a very powerful piece of kit, and as I said before, you know, so it should be because of the price tag on this thing. So I was sent this unit for review from LITNXT. On their website, it's currently up for £253. If you get it with the SD card, you can get 128 or a 256. This one's got the 256 gigabyte card. That will set you back £275. So it is not by any stretch of the imagination a cheap piece of kit, but nor does it feel it. To be honest, when you're using it, it does feel a lot more premium, like significantly premium than a lot of the ones I've been looking at. But then there are competitors in its field that don't have that price tag. So whether it justifies that or not, other videos will inform you a little bit more on that. In terms of my first impressions, I can see that something like this would be a really worthwhile investment for someone who just wants something that will play as much as possible, all the way up to like PlayStation 2, GameCube, Wii. If you want to emulate everything right from the start up to there, something like this is really quite a capable machine. Also, if you're buying from LITNXT, you can use the code JOEBLEEPS for 12% off. I'll leave links in the description. Also, on their website, they often have discounts, so you wouldn't find yourself surprised if you found a 15% discount code at some point, which will bring your price down quite a bit. Now, fancy specs aside, basically from my point of view, this is a great looking console with a gorgeous screen and really, really nice ergonomics. It feels very powerful and it plays nearly everything I've thrown at it. Also, it's got loads of internal storage, which makes for easy installation of any new old games. In terms of installing games on it, you can obviously just add them to your SD card, or you can do what I did and connect with a USB cable to your computer and transfer files across that way. On a PC, that's fairly straightforward. On a Mac, it can be a bit more tricky. I use a software called OpenMTP. I'll link that in the description if I remember as well. It is really, really good in terms of just connecting to your Mac and transferring files across. That puts them directly to the internal storage, which, like I say, is 256 gigabytes, and you're not going to run out of space. One of the things I like a lot about this is that, say for example, if I go into Nintendo Wii here, I've got all of my games listed, but if I go into emulator settings, so you can choose which is your default emulator and so on, but in the ROM settings, you can have a number of separate paths that it then merges. So I've got the storage on my internal storage, I've also got my SD card that it's pointing towards, and then if you go start searching for new games, when you've got your list, it just merges them all into the one list. You get your little previews and so on if they're included, but you can tell which ones I've added because they've not got the previews, but I haven't got up to that yet. I'm more about playing the games themselves. So as I mentioned before, the joysticks have got RGB LEDs. They do make it look really cool. I wish I could have left those on, but if that is something that doesn't bother you, then you can keep those on. You can choose the patterns, the little animations on them, the different colors and things. And on mine, like I say, I've just got this subtle yellow, which works for me, but it might be a little bit boring for you. As I say, these thumbsticks are really small, and at this point, I don't notice it anymore, but at first it did seem like they were just really, really tiny, but I like them so much. They're so responsive, so comfortable to use, even over long periods of time. I think I'd rather have this than the larger thumbsticks. I've got the Switch 2 recently, which, by the way, I've been enjoying, but I've also continued playing on this quite a lot, even despite having the Switch 2, because I like this so much. So, that's definitely a selling point for it. But the thumbsticks feel very different, and despite my initial impressions of they do look kind of weird and small, I like them a lot. They're really good. they're actually a positive to me rather than being a negative in terms of what this console has to offer. As I said before, the D-pad is also really good, so it seems like everything's going great for the controls, but my one main criticism of this console is the face buttons, probably down to the silicon membrane inside. The X and Y seem fine, but the A, you have to press so hard to get it to respond. I've been playing like Mario Kart Double Dash on GameCube, and if I slightly relax my grip, my cart just trundles to a halt. I don't realise I've not been pressing it hard enough. You have to have it really pressed down hard. I am hoping that over time, this silicon membrane underneath the buttons here will break in and it'll feel a little bit more responsive, but for the moment, it's a little disappointing. It does feel like it's getting more responsive with time, but I still find I need to press quite a bit. I'll just launch a little bit of Double Dash and show you what I mean. Hopefully you can hear the sound. We've got speakers are actually on the back here. There's a stereo speakers just on the reverse here. Speaking of the back, let's just turn that volume down a little. The unit I got is in this clear purple plastic and it looks amazing. I'd heard about it being a fingerprint magnet, but really, I get fingerprints on everything. I've not found it to be that bad. Most of my fingerprints end up on the screen because it's a touch screen, and we'll talk about that in a little bit anyway. But you can see, hopefully, Mario Kart Double Dash there, intro video is running super smooth. And then when I just press start, we'll get to our main screen there. Yeah, this is running at 4x resolution, I think, and it runs really, really well. But when I start the game, we'll just jump straight in, Grand Prix. I'll just go on 50 for now, it's just on the defaults. And on Luigi, I'll just tap on anything. I'll jump straight in. So yeah, it's getting better, but at first I really had to press that button hard. And also the B button, it kind of sticks a little bit. I don't know if... Get my volume down. One of the good things about volume as well, by the way, is when you turn your volume up and down, you can adjust with your finger because everything's touch screen, which is kind of cool. So yeah, the B button, so when I'm slightly to the left and the bottom, it sticks and then releases. I'll see if I can get an angle where you can see it. It's a bit slow to come back up. So that is something that I am hoping improves over time. In terms of actually playing the game, as I say, when I relax my grip a little bit, the cart just trundles to a halt, and I have to press it a lot firmer for it to race ahead. So in terms of actual gameplay, obviously it is looking really, really good. We've got it accelerated to a very high level of performance, better than the original display. You've got the controls, which, as I say, with the A button, B button responding a bit better over time. It's just getting better and better. The thumbstick is fantastic. Really, really good level of control over it. I'm just so bad at playing and talking at the same time. But yeah, this is what I've been playing on it quite a lot, actually, Mario Kart. You wouldn't think it to look at how I've been playing, but I've been playing on this a lot. And also, so if we press the little home button there, we've got various different settings. We can do a quick save, we can do a quick load, we can exit the emulation, which we'll do in this case, and we'll try out Mario Kart Wii. So it brings up this new game, old game thing. So I'll try and launch the old game, and then that just goes away. I'll try and launch the old game, that just goes away. So you have to go with new game. But I don't think that actually causes an issue. I think when you actually load up the game, it recalls the progress that you'd made anyway. Yeah, so I've got all of my progress logged on there anyway. Sometimes you'll get like little bits of models and that won't quite appear on screen, or when you choose in your character and cart and things, that won't be there. But in terms of playing the game, it runs really well. Now, obviously, I'm used to the Linux handhelds, and their level of capability is limited. These are much more powerful, and as a result, they kind of take a lot out of the processor, which is why we've got this fan in here, which is currently whirring away. One of the issues I've had with a lot of my Linux handhelds is that they kind of feel like they overheat. It worries me how warm they get. Obviously, having the internal fan on there takes that worry away, and the sound of the fan isn't really an issue. You can turn it down if you like and change your performance. There's a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can do with this. But if we just jump straight in again on here, I'll just go with the default of everything, and we'll just get playing on the Mushroom Cup. So yeah, when I was first testing this out, it wasn't playing very well at all, and then I've delved in and tweaked the settings. I have had to go on Google quite a lot to get this running how I want it. However, when I've searched for anything and I need some information of how to get something to work better, the answers have always been very easily accessible. So it's not been a problem, it's just a learning process. It's a whole new handheld system to me, so it's learning how that works. I've got quite used to the Linux handhelds over time, and this one is quite different. So it's just something different to get used to. And it's not that the Linux ones are super straightforward by any means. It's mainly because I just am more used to working with those, and I've had experience of handhelds using that operating system before, so it's something that is within my expectations, whereas this is all very different. And as you can see, this is all running really smoothly. Music, gameplay, frame rate, everything is running really well. And if you wanted to tweak or change anything, you can just go into your settings here, and there's loads of stuff. You can jump into the quick settings first, and then there's internal resolution, which as you can see I've got on 4, so there's 4 times the original resolution, and it's just running absolutely fine. So there's lots of different things that we can do within there. Also, if I just exit the emulation there, what I'm in at the moment is Anbernic's main interface, so we can go through and choose from the various different bits of hardware. So say for example Game Boy Advance here, and you can scroll through all of your games. Up at the top here you can have your recents, all, or you can sort them however you want in the folder there, or you can have your favorites. And as you can see there, I'm making my way around with the touchscreen, which is really kind of fun. Obviously that means that you can play on DS games and actually use the touch controls on there. Unfortunately, obviously your screen layout is somewhat limited. So if we have a little bit of Nintendogs, you can see the layout there. Now it has got the sort of screen control overlay there. So in terms of accessing your settings, if you just press the little bit at the bottom, you can change all of that. So we can actually hide the controls, I think. There we go. So that just looks like a regular DS. Bottom screen goes smaller, top screen goes a little bit bigger. You can press the left trigger to swap them over, and we can touch that to continue. So that works as your touch screen instead of having to use a stylus, which is kind of cool. So we can go, would you like to buy a puppy, or would you like to look at the kennel puppies? Let's have a look. Such hardcore gaming. But I am a sucker for chihuahuas. So here we are. Let's go for little Maxwell there. And then again, we can just tap the trigger to swap screens and see the little yappy boy in action. So yeah, it's all, let's just quieten them down a bit. We can come out of there on this one by going on there, and then we can go menu, and we can quit. There we go. So I haven't spent that much time on the DS emulation, but the fact you've got a touch screen does work pretty well, and I like being able to swap between the two screens but still keep an eye on the other screen. Obviously your older hardware, like your arcade ones and your Game Boy and your NES and your Game Boy Color and everything, looks really good. Like we'll go on Game Boy Color. What were some of my recent games there? So I'll have a little look at Mario Land 2 DX. It's got all of the settings to put your borders on there and to get your palette just right and everything else, and it's playing great. Again, looking at my camera, it's not particularly promising because it looks like the sort of flickering of the screen is causing an issue. It plays and looks absolutely great. You can use the thumbstick or you can use the D-pad. Works absolutely fine and looks really good. But I'm not going to spend too much time on the older games. I think what we're better off doing, if we just quit that there, is look at what, see my B button got stuck there again. This is something that's happening quite a bit. It reminds me a bit of when I tried out the Analog Pocket. It's like a really fantastic, premium, really capable machine, and where it fell down was in the face button controls. It's like that should be something that's not difficult to get right. I've got some very, very cheap budget handhelds that have much better face button response than this, so it's frustrating that it just comes down to that silicon pad in there that's causing so much in terms of slight frustrations on what is otherwise a fantastic machine. So yeah, it can do all sorts. It can play Dreamcast really well. You've got Atomic Wave, Naomi games. You've got the PSP. A lot of the time I've had issues in the past with PSP games because the other handhelds I've had really struggle to run games, particularly God of War Chains of Olympus is one that's kind of notorious, whereas in this case it runs really, really well. So if I go on here and I just load state there, again, the touchscreen comes in quite handy. This, in terms of my settings, go on there, I have got the rendering resolution at 8 times the PSP at 4K. You can change all sorts of different settings on there, but that is running at quite a demanding setting considering it won't run just as like the default on my other handhelds. This runs really smoothly. Everything works absolutely fine. The frame rate is good. It looks fantastic, and yeah, it's just quite capable. and really fun to play. So I've not really spent that much time on this before because a lot of my other emulators couldn't handle it, but in this case it's alright. It's a bit weird. There's some questionable mini games after a boss battle that wasn't entirely sold on, but in terms of the action, it is good fun. I don't like those kind of QTE sequences. They're very much off their time, but yeah, in terms of getting to play this game, it's running really, really well. Other systems, so we can go on here and we can just exit to menu and then exit from there. What else have we got as well as PSP? PS2 is something that you see, you've even got Wii U emulation on there. I've only got a few games on there, but Kirby and the Rainbow Curse was running smoothly. Shovel Knight was fine, but yeah, I've yet to dig into that too much. But again, the touchscreen function is there. You've got Pico 8 with a selection of different Pico 8 games built in, but you can't access the Explore, where you can kind of install your own games. You just play what's on there. But there are a lot of Pico 8 games on there already. There's obviously your NES, your Master System, PC Engine. All these run absolutely great. Game Boy, I mean, I play a lot of Game Boy, and some handhelds, despite being powerful, don't run Game Boy games particularly well. Again, if I go on recent, I've obviously been playing Tetris and Cat Trap. It looks and plays absolutely great. I've got no issues with that at all. So we'll just have a quick blast on there. Again, you can play with your D-pad or you can play with your stick. It's up to you. But really, although I spend a lot of time playing this and it's great, and you can save state if you're doing particularly well, or if you want to save your high scores on game B or something like that, then save state comes in quite handy. So yeah, even on these older games, like you can still spend a lot of time playing those, and I think that's where something like this comes in as an all-in-one solution. Yeah, it can play GameCube, it can play Wii, it can play PS2, it can play PSP, but you can still play older Neo Geo, Game Boy, Super Nintendo, all of these things. PlayStation works really well on it. Sega Saturn runs well. Nintendo 64. You've just got a wealth of gaming history at your fingertips here, even with PlayStation 2. Some games run absolutely fine straight off. I kind of fell down a little bit of a rabbit hole trying to get Eco to work because that was one of my favorite PlayStation 2 games, so I've got that there. So with this, I found it works best if I choose the 50 Hz display instead of the 60 Hz. It was struggling to render some of the textures, but once I got it all up and running, obviously the fan's kicking in because it is pushing the machine quite a bit, but it runs really well, runs really smoothly. So if I go on here, I can load state. I've got save slot 1 there, and then here we are. So the brightness is quite low here because I'm in a particularly dark area, but it does work. It runs around everywhere. All the textures load. The frame rate is good. And as I say, it's a classic. It's one of my favorite games. So the fact that I managed to get that running is great. I did have to dig quite a bit into the settings. I changed a few settings here and there. I can't remember what I did now. I think it was on the system. I had to change a few things. Most of this that I did, it wasn't me being clever. I just kind of Googled it and tried to find out what were some of the issues. There are some known issues with certain games and certain suggested things to change and set up. I've enabled the widescreen patches so it automatically goes and uses the full screen. Obviously, this full screen looks great for anything widescreen, and a lot of older games aren't widescreen. But yeah, you've got PlayStation 2 capability there, and although some games might not work right off the bat, over time, like if you tweak the settings, then that can work really well. So if you just exit game there, I've been playing some of my favorite shooters and things on there as well, Yoshihime Sama, because things get a little bit hectic on that one. But if we just have a quick look at that, in terms of loading times, it's pretty good, you know, especially when you're loading bigger games on more advanced consoles. I think it's certainly quick, and that's down to the processor that it's got in there. But some games just take a little while to load anyway. So if we just start here. So I am on the joystick at the moment. Normally with shoot 'em up games, I default to the D-pad, but I've found more and more with this machine that I will just kind of not even realize I'm using that. Even playing things like Game Boy Advance Metroid, I play that a lot with the D-pad, and using the joystick on it is still pretty good. I've got a decent amount of control over what I'm doing here. And when I compare that to the D-pad, obviously I like the D-pad on this. It gives me a lot of control. So although I would choose the D-pad in general, as I say, I tend to find sometimes just without thinking, I start using the joystick, and it's pretty comfortable to use. So the battery lasts really well. Sleep mode is good. You literally just tap on the power button and it goes blank, and you tap on it again, it comes back on. Like a standard Android, it was default set to kind of swipe up with your finger, and then you can set it to put in a passcode or whatever else. But as it stands, I just found it easier to just disable all of that. I only ever use this at home, so I just have that so that you just press the power button, it goes in sleep mode, press it again, it comes back on. The battery life is pretty good, and as a result of having the fast charge, even when your battery is worn down, you don't have to cope without it for long before you can play again. So I mentioned before the Anbernic button. So this is in kind of Anbernic's interface, which is really good in terms of choosing your games. But if I press and hold this button here, it swaps it between that and your standard Android interface where you've got your settings. It comes preloaded with loads of apps. I have installed other apps since, as well as obviously it's an Android handheld, so it can play Android games as well, some of which will only work with touch controls, some of which you can use the controls here, and they've all run really nicely. Got Horizon Chase, Pixel Car Racer and Asphalt 8, just simply for trying it out. You can also stream games. I tried on the Xbox app because you used to be able to stream using that. That doesn't work anymore, so I got an app called Better xCloud that was pretty good actually for streaming my games from my Xbox Series X. There is Vita 3K on there, which doesn't appear when you're in the Anbernic mode. There's no Vita on there, and to be honest, I haven't delved into that too much, but obviously this handheld should be quite a good fit for PlayStation Vita. Now it also comes with the infamous Rixel HK app, which is where you can download games to your console. Now when I first heard about this, I thought, wow, that's amazing. You can just kind of search for any game you want and it just automatically installs it on the console. It did seem a little dodgy. I mean, I know these things come with SD cards absolutely loaded with games, but being able to just do that, I'm not sure. I know that's being controversial. However, there's not as many games on there as I expected. You can get different types of game. You can go on like emulator type. So say, for example, if I'm looking on Dreamcast and see what's on there, and then you can just tap on it and download it, and it downloads straight to your console. It's pretty awesome, but at the same time, it does feel like it opens the door to these kind of handhelds being shut down, especially by the likes of the big N. And we've got, you know, Nintendo 64 and things like that. But if I go on, say, for example, N64, and we go through there, there's not that many Mario games on there. And you can go up to we've got an emulator type there, but we can also just search, just tap into the search bar there. And if we search for Mario, for instance, there are a few. There's New Super Mario Brothers, Mario 64, Super Mario World, and so on. Super Mario Kart Super Circuit. So there's only those 4 that come up, but even having those, you don't often get them on the SD cards that come with those. So yeah, it's you can make your own judgment on whether that's great for you or whether you're better off avoiding that. Little ads for the SP and the RG slide. Haven't tried this one yet, but I have got the SP that I'll be doing a video on soon, as well as the Powkiddy clamshell that I've been trying out too. However, this video is all about the Android, and as I say, this app does open it up, because I do find sometimes when I am going with default game lists that are on these SD cards, sometimes it's just not the kind of games that are for me. So if I can go on my computer and import my own ROMs just through USB-C, or if I can hop on here and see if there's any other games I like, then that works pretty well for me. As I say, there's loads of different apps, and you can use those on their own. You can use them individually, or you can press and hold on your Anbernic button and just go into this interface, which, if I'm honest, this is where I spend most of my time. I usually just go into the other section to tweak my settings and so on. As I say, 256 gig of internal storage is huge, which is great when you've got consoles like the PlayStation 2 that have a bit more of a larger size to their games. So that works out really well, and I am nowhere near filling up my storage space. The SD card that I got is already pretty much crammed full of games, so I've got plenty to play on whatever format I choose. There's even 3DS there, which runs in a similar way to the DS interface, albeit not in 3D. So there is lots and lots that you can play on here. But yeah, this is more about my experience of using the handheld. I do like being able to swap between the standard Android interface, which is as you would normally expect. Also your usual features like being able to swipe down to the top to change your settings, your Bluetooth, your internet, your auto rotate. All of those sort of settings are in there as you would get on a regular Android phone. So it's a phone that you don't use as a phone. You can set up Google Play Store, which I've got on there. You can install any apps that you want from the Google Play Store as well, and you can sign in with your standard Google account or set up a new account or whatever else. So the things that I really like about this is the design of the unit itself. It feels really premium, very, very comfortable to hold, excellent thumbsticks, amazing screen. I like having a one-stop solution for emulating pretty much everything on one machine. There's no Switch emulation, but that doesn't bother me. Switch is like a current machine, and I'm quite happy to pay for my games from my Nintendo Switch and play them on there, so I'm not really bothered about emulating that. I've got a Nintendo Switch that does the job of running Switch games absolutely perfectly, and I'm quite happy to support that so I can continue using it. But everything up to that point, this does pretty well. So I think in terms of how much it emulates, particularly once you get all those settings right, that's good. I think it looks great. It feels really solid. The D-pad is great. The thumbsticks are great. We had the issues with the buttons that we talked about before. The shoulder buttons and the triggers are also great. What else do I like about this thing? Despite the fact that there are a lot of tweaks to be made on some settings, and it is a bit of a rabbit hole going down there, it is easy to access the settings, and there's loads of things that you can tweak and change to suit your own tastes. Put your own games on there very easily is also a plus. It is a fantastic piece of hardware. You can play your Android games on there. You can stream your Xbox, for instance, on here. It's just so powerful. It can do an awful lot. So yeah, I'm finding it's become just my go-to to pick up and play of any game. And obviously I spend a lot of my time on things like Game Boy Advance. Game Boy Advance, again, we've gone recent. I like having the touchscreen to be able to do these things. So just load up Metroid Zero Mission. It's not stretched out to the full screen, although it is widescreen. And I have kept a border because I've got it set to integer scaling for a more precise picture. You could stretch it all the way to the edge of the screen, but I found like this, to be honest, because the screen's so big, with the integer scaling on, it looks really good. So I've just kept it like that. And yeah, it looks really good. It plays really well. As I say, the ergonomics to hold it like this are fine. D-pad, you need to kind of compromise how you're holding a bit, but it's certainly not uncomfortable. So having said all of that, it's kind of like I'm making it out to be a near perfect console, but unfortunately it's not. And most of the reviews I'd seen were kind of headlined as a near perfect console or a missed opportunity or a flawed, excellent, powerful handheld. There were a lot of this is great, but for me, the main caveat has been these buttons, and I'm hoping that sorts itself out over time. However, there are a few issues that I had some trouble with. Obviously, first of all, the learning curve that I mentioned before. It has been quite tricky to get used to this system and how it works compared to what I'm used to. So if you're used to your standard budget emulators and you come to this, there is a bit more to get your head around. Everything is, and each handheld runs on its own different emulator, which has its own settings and so on. But it is extremely versatile, and you can do something about it. That you can work within those settings to get it just how you want it. You just got to expect there's a bit of a learning curve to get there. Also, most of the time I didn't know what I was doing. I had to Google it, but when I was searching for my answers, the answers were generally quite easy to find. As I say, the controls are my main issue. You hard press on A to get it to really respond. B can get stuck sometimes, and that just takes you out of the experience. And it's disappointing that manufacturers of such amazing consoles with such power, such beautiful visuals, good sound, can be let down with your main interface between you and the hardware. So yeah, A and B button are my main issue with it at the moment. They have got better over time, and I just hope that they continue getting better. With it being a touchscreen, that's where all your fingerprints go. I haven't got issues with the shell being a fingerprint magnet, but the screen does need an occasional wipe. And obviously with it being a touchscreen, you need to put it in sleep mode before you wipe it down and then continue your gameplay, but it's not. It's definitely not a deal breaker for me. Obviously, your other drawback on this is going to be the price. It is a lot of money. It's very, very expensive, and there are a lot of other things you can get with your money at that price point. But that said, once you've made that investment and you've got this console, there is so much it can do. It's not the sort of thing that you can just slip into your pocket. It is quite big. It's a very capable machine with a big, gorgeous display loaded with generations worth of incredible games, pretty much an endless library of things to play. Everything I have tried, sometimes with a little bit of tweaking to get it right, but everything I have tried I've been able to get to run pretty much perfectly and extremely playable. and I've had loads of fun with it. So as I say, it was a delay in terms of doing a review because there was a lot for me to get to grips with, and I wasn't sure what my opinions were along the way. I actually enjoyed getting to know it. I actually enjoyed getting to use it, and I would say that all of the positives I've said about it far outweigh those two negatives. One, yes, it is expensive. That's your choice if you decide you're going to spend that or not. Two, the disappointment of these buttons does detract a little bit from it, but they are far from unusable. It's just a bit jarring considering the really smooth performance of the rest of it. As I say, I'm not an expert on these. I don't have other Android handhelds to compare to, but for me, as my first experience with it, obviously I'm coming straight in with Anbernic's latest, what is essentially their flagship handheld. This is their absolute top-end handheld, and yeah, it's really, really good.